Hello, welcome this afternoon. It is one day before my 85th birthday, and I'm rather proud of the fact that I made it a German lineage since, what was it, Victoria or before Victoria, and the Anglo-Saxons, which I tend to identify more with, are a little ticked off with all this wild desire to go to war to reduce our bloodline connections too much and to keep the serfs in line, of course. So all of this history is behind us now, and we've gone through a major change because something that is can be said by very advanced Satgurus, and I make a distinction between Sadgurus, like my friend Ashok Sarkar Fohir was, or Fohir Sarkar, who was a friend of Timothy Leary, and all those guys. And so, without much adventure, except believing maybe I should learn to smoke weed, like a lot of younger people were doing then, and was encouraged to do that by younger people. Well, I did, and it broke open the door for me between my relationship to religion and my relationship to God, the internal. And so I did develop what most gurus are able to do, a personal relationship with the God within, and that's with conscience. And so you can never be ahead of the para-atma. The para-atma is all-knowing, all-powerful, resonates with all things in different ways, and produces the variety of human life on this surface. Now, as fluid druids, we check this back to what is the source of creation and what is the nature of the moon. Now, as we understand that the moon is in fact 13 and not 12, then we realize that the mathematics begin to work properly. So we have then 13 months of 28 days each, which of course will bring us into a better relationship with for the women, because most women have their menses, as they call them, or some people call them, on a fairly regular basis around full moon, and sometimes around 28 days or in that range. So that's a valuable thing as well. So it can be used as one of the major ways of preventing overgeneration of our species. Now, how should we be looking at this? Well, we should be looking at this from our own sense of internal relationship to the union that is called yoga. Can be started pretty early. And as a choir boy who was suddenly not an important little angel singing solos in the choir, and not having been rounded up to be made what do they used to call them? Anyway, having escaped that wrath of Middle Eastern singing, I went on to from Christianity to Buddhism, then from Buddhism to yoga. And yoga, I did a lot of my homework standing on my head, and I'm not sure that that didn't do some serious damage. I did tend to see the world upside down, and of course that is the way it is now seen, the right way up. In that beautiful old symbol of the circle with the vertical stroke up the middle, and the beautiful outstretched wings touching that circle is the real peace sign. And it was cleverly introduced at the Aldermas in March back in 19, when was that now? Oh, that would be 56, 57 perhaps, somewhere in there, by some clever Germans who said, oh, you want to march behind getting rid of atomic bombs? Well, good luck. And they encouraged that. And later CIA apparently did the thing in the United States. So, and yet people become very stubborn about symbols. And the symbol of well, what they call the peace sign, upside down, of course, is one of those, or what do they call them? Anyway, where native people would draw on the floor, and if you were following them, and they were ahead of you, and they said, well, we've got it under control, that would be the symbol. And if, listen, we're in serious trouble, then they would put it the way that we call the peace sign, which is upside down. So I think once we make that simple adjustment in the way we carry our flags when we're on peaceful demonstration, then it would make a big difference. Now, people say, oh, John, that's just mysticism. Well, I'm a mystic. I've been a mystic since I was baptized and survived the baptism. Throw you into the font, and if you swim and you want to be there, well, they'll let you. And if you don't want to go there with them, they'll probably let you, go on, because after all, if you're being led in any constitutional, well, is that the right word, authoritarian fashion by people that believe in eternal life, some of them go really rotten and think, well, you're not worth anything anymore. Get the heck out of here. Send you to war, or write your death certificate a little early. All these things that bring about confusions about the nature of death. Now, a year ago, last July the 11th, my dear sister, who had been my big sister during the Second World War, since before the Second World War, passed away. And I mourned, but in a strange way. I took it all calmly. I wasn't not, I was always somewhat anxious in my life, but I went through all that this year with all this pandemic stuff, and I held on to the fact that one of the things that kill you is a fear of death. And there was an old saying, cowards die many times before their death, but we go along with it. We fear it. So as soon as we stop fearing it, we cease to be cowardly, and we cease to be unafraid by some of those some of those costs. Uh, and smooth over it and say, that's all in the mind, John. Project positivity. Now that is an attitude that you're able to do if you see yourself as a fluid druid. What does that mean? Well, it means to say that you're on your own path, you're the captain of your own ship, and if you use the word I'm a guru, well, you say I look after my own shit too. The problem is today that everything can be turned into a busyness for money. And when Ram Dass came through here preaching that, which I've been onto since a child, I said, oh no, please, Ram Dass, don't start charging money. Because as soon as you do, you lower the cause of the truth and you elevate the purposes of money. So a lot of gurus go off the track, and many of them become very rich, and they can afford lots of this and lots of that, and many of them are very good at what they do, because many of them set up businesses and they set up ashrams, and some of the old ashrams keep going, or more commonly they write a few books and everybody says how brilliant they are, or they've lived a really desperately barely recoverable drug addiction from which many of them have emerged enlightened, dare I say. And what does that mean? Well, they start practicing common sense. And as I started saying earlier, what is common sense is what we can all see together. And if we can't, then either people are blind or they're terribly asthmatic in their eyesight. Well, I'll tell you one thing as a fluid druid. If ever one day you suddenly look up and you see the sun in its holism, not at high tide, but not high tide, not at the height of the sun, but as soon as you feel comfortable, and it should happen quite spontaneously, there is no question that you will see the classic sign of the radiant cross. That is what you see. Now, if you're as I am, a sun gazer, anytime I wanted to be reassured that there is a divine, I only have to look at the sun, and the sun will communicate with you at any time of day and will bang into your head what it is you really need to know. Now, when I started looking into what was wrong with my eyes, and this was 10, 15, 20 years ago, people said, well, we have cataracts, John. And I thought, well, what are they doing? Are they just burning them off? And then I looked it up, and no, they're actually taking a scalpel to your eyeball and taking out, what's wrong with the lens. And then you go to the optometrist and he says, oh, well, yours is going to be a special lens and it's going to cost you lots of money. We've got to make it for you. And I think, well, what's it made of? And they say plastic. And I go, well, I don't know why they don't have a few on the side that are, not particularly for my eyes. And then I find out it's got nothing to do with my eyes or my lenses at all. Once you start studying these things for yourself, doing your own sun gazing when it's appropriate, and that's generally better after the sun has gone red. But if you should do it in an early morning and you focus on it, what you will probably see is the hole that is in the middle of the sun. In other words, the tiny black hole which powers the sun and creates the different uh, astrological phenomena in which there is definitely conscious awareness. Now, a lot of things have been said of these gurus want to make things more and more complicated and more argumentative and keep themselves in busy, busy. Okay, well, I'm channeling, right? So if Bizit comes up, that's probably what the divine said through me. So I have to laugh at it because it's kind of funny. Okay, if you don't get it, well, you don't get it. Iconoclastic, I put somewhere in my iconoclastic is not destructive. It's simply saying this is blinking foolishness, and we fluid druids have made that assessment, and we have to say this is absolute rubbish. Well, people say, well, by what authority? Well, I've watched it for a while, and that's what kept happening. Is that science? Yes, it is. And what have I seen through the last 4 of my years? And it ends tomorrow. Satguru, you were right. It was going to be a weird year for me when you said, well, you won't find another womb. Well, I don't think I was actually looking for another womb, being a man. I was quite, well, maybe that's what you're supposed to do. But I already have 5 grandchildren, and and uh, and three of the smartest, the smartest daughters a man could possibly have. One who's 15 and towers over me, and looks down at granddad, but I'm known as Papa John to all my grandchildren. They've decided that's what they're going to call me. So I'm quite happy to accept that. So I'm a Papa John, and I'm a fluid druid, and I just want to get back on YouTube again. They've been very kind to me. I've never tried to make any money of what I do. I've given it to the world who cares any use for it. That's good. If you can use it, if you can find ways of taking the sense of the all knowing within yourself. Now, be careful because it's very easy then not to be practicing common sense. Because once you realize some powers, sometimes cities, I think they call them, these magic powers, your first thing, most importantly, will not be to use it to be humble and serve what you understand is the nature of creation, wherever you came from. But just understand that you are just a little tiny, 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 tiny little photon of conscious awareness. And the sun has lots of them more to give us. So, now, if you look on that basis, and when you consider that we're sort of the ham and the ham sandwich between Mother Earth and Father Sun, now you're getting the foundations of fluid druidism, because fluid druidism, I think, gives character to everything, and it's like giving a dog freedom. If you have a troublesome dog and he's dragging away at you, and you daren't let him go, or he won't come back, or whatever you think. Well, as long as you're thinking those things about your dog, you dare not in urban environments let your dog um, free. Then your dog hates you for that because there's no freedom. It's like you've got a job and yeah, you got to go to do the work. Why? Well, who's saying this? Who's taking away your freedom? Well, the people that worship money. Worship money. Now, not so long ago, I think it was on Facebook, I put up a bit to uh, one of the. Well, anyway, at that time he was the patriarch for the Rothschilds, and I noticed that he was the same age as me. He obviously would still be the same age as me. We were both born in 1936. And I thought that was reason enough as a man who has tried to live peacefully without lying, cheating, stealing, or doing any dirty tricks on as little as I needed to. Why? Because I've been run out of my own country, not able to carry on the career at 23 that I got, not able to carry on with the people that I was forming communion with, and leave my country because at that time Great Britain and the United States, both with a lot of killer evidence, decided to get together after the Second World War and take on their allies. Well, we know what a mess that was. And 10 years ago or more, I guess I began to realize, oh, much more, actually, that there was problems here. And although nobody had told me in any formal way, well, John, we may have cultivated you to be a useful, but now we look on you as one of those idiots that might be useful. Well, okay, well, accept me in any way you like it. But I've been watching cantry. I've been watching this cantry. So they're canning all the trees, slide down into the depths of fundamental confusion. Let's call it confusion. Let's not bother blaming anybody because it's so common that nobody after a while can trust anybody. And when that happens, Vishnu, who set the whole thing up according to the Sanskrit people reading, like my friend Ashok, my Satguru friend, um, who didn't deny me that if I wanted to go my own way, if I wanted to be my own guru, well, he wished me luck. And I say, and I'm happy for you because you're not one of those gurus that are running around looking for followers. I don't have to be your chela to be your friend. And so we found a bonding around that notion that I would serve the creator and I would serve my guru to the extent that I could. But beyond that, I was still my own boss. And I felt that was very important, not because I'm an arrogant man, but just because I was brought up to be an angel. And if you're an angel, you kind of have to follow God's will. So if they say you go to choir on Sundays twice a day, you're happy to do it. You love doing it. You love singing. And when they come along and pat you on the head, the little old ladies, and say, "Oh, John, you sing so beautifully. I cry every time you sing, Oh, for the wings of a dove." And then I think about doves and I think about the way the pigeons fly. We're close relatives. I go, well, thank you very much. You know? But if your mind is slippery and you have an open mind, then there are always doors that are actually not there in the first place that you can catch up with. So anyway, I think this is one way to happiness. I think it is vital what most of these gurus are having to tell you, and you should listen very carefully because it is in the nuance that the subtlety of a relationship with one's creator is managed. It's looking for the sign, as I always say. Look for the signs. Well, not only me. I have some friends, one of whom wrote Seven Arrows, which was a very interesting book, which tried to integrate the ideas of the way that the native people on this continent and continents of North and South America were able to survive with their energy and their love of creation above their ability to work harder than any normal person would work just because they're under the whip of the slave, you know. Thousands and thousands of beautiful people were destroyed on this land. And when I eventually landed here, following my grandfather's advice, I felt obliged to try and do something. Well, nothing I was able to do in all the years I've been here has really changed anything. In some ways, I think I may have put it backwards. But you know what? I do believe now the time has come. And for the next 20 years of my life, I will see that we will come to world peace. And I think that's going to happen very quickly because all the chaos that we've been going through lately has been the product of intelligence, so-called intelligence agencies working for the reduction on a grand scale of the population of the planet. That's one way to interpret it. The other way is they didn't have a bloody clue what was going on. It got out of hand and they became lying in the interests of their own purposes. And as soon as they started revealing the course of action, then people began to rise against it. And I don't think they're going to be successful, any more successful with this pandemic to reduce the population in a grand way. However, a little bit about why Shiva comes, as I understand it. I don't get it very clearly from some of the other gurus, if as they mostly are, and that is very simply that we've been in the worst of times since the passing of Krishna. Now, Krishna was Christ in the world of the West, of India, and some people say he went there with Thomas, and there's some evidence to support that. There's a big thing somewhere which says this man came from the Middle East and enlightened us all about the nature of eternal life, and we began to adopt that. And that is, after all, the foundation of the Christian ideal. And some people say, well, it's just a trick, and the blood in the water which came out could be a fairly light thing if you knew where to place the spear or the spear, and the vinegar would have, and what was in the vinegar and whatever, the survival of Christ was no doubt enabled by the followers of Christ, and from that grew this concept. But then I know other people, other more reputable, because fluid druids have no authority whatsoever. We're loose souls. We're singularities. We're also angels of God, of course. That's why we can't really join anything. They they drew a circle that shut me out. Heretic, rebel, a thing to flout. But love and I had but love and I had a wit. Love and I had the wit to win. We drew a circle that took them in. So we love everybody. We understand that people are here as roles designed for the evolution of the entire human race. And this is the time when the arms industry will stand back and say, what good have we really done? What good? What God did we serve? Was it the God of war? It wasn't the love of peace. Well, God is grand order divine, yes. War, oh, look at the uniforms, look at the polish, spit and polish. That's not something to worship. But on the other hand, you can live with it. If you're a soldier and you're ready to die, well, I guess you have a good chance to get dead. And they keep that away from it. No, because, you know, you're a part of a none shall shine. We're not too bright. Ignorance is bliss, boys. We've got to go and defend the men and women and children, and so on and so on and so on. A big propaganda, and people buy it. It's just like this. Oh, we're all going to die from COVID. No, we're not all going to die from anything, you idiots. Everybody dies, no question about that. Oh, by the way, I mentioned this earlier, and if I don't, I do get a bit wander in my wander. Do I wonder when I wander in my mind? And I do wander and wonder in my mind. I'm in a state of awe the whole time that I'm aware, alive, awake, and happy, and can show a way to happiness. So what do we got to do? Well, first of all, we got to eliminate all the sign of something within a very short time, and Shiva will be doing this, and that is, uh, well, the story goes that when Shiva appears, Shiva sends up test messages ahead. Jesus Christ took it, was on the run, and got a few fishermen and passed it around. Peter came along, took it to Russia, Italy, to Rome. And before you know it, we have an institution. And from that institution, many other institutions, all of which were eclectic, got better ideas, and we're happy to pass it on. So I've got a sign that just came up, said end stream. So I guess I will follow instructions. There are many more instructions than there used to be on Facebook. And I don't like to mention this to YouTube because you've served me very well. If you go on YouTube, just look up Rainbow John 1. It's not easy to find it, but if you put that on YouTube, they'll say, do you mean something different, like John 1? No, that's not what you're looking for. You're looking for Rainbow John 1, lowercase. And that goes back at least 10 years to my old efforts to avoid the approach of some of the other. Well, like I followed them all, though, as much as I could. And certainly when I dropped the pebble into the lake of the web, when I brought that issue up of Krishna, and 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 when Krishna passed, we went into Kali Yuga, and Yuga, and that was ignorance. Kali Yuga is the darkness of ignorance, and Shiva, that is the collective intelligence, is suddenly sat upon, and that's the condition we're in now. But the condition is a little bit down the road from that, because the divine will of all the created, all the variations that have been adopted by streams of people, led often by priests who make it their foundation for authority, and their efforts to manage those people that follow them uh, into a world where they are successful collectively. And I think that is the foundation of, well, most things that really are very, very practical. So there is a practical side, but once it gets into money, then I think they've lost their trail in the wilderness. We have to move away from that. And everything that I suggest in future, because they've asked me to end stream, so I'm going to do that. I've been on for probably more than half an hour. Oh, 31, 32. Okay, so I've been on for that. I didn't get to see any people responding. I think six. Oh, no, this. No, so I don't think anybody heard this except YouTube and analysts. And if they like what I do, then certainly encourage me any way you can, and keep it up there. I have suffered some censorship from one of the other operators, but I'm trying to find forgiveness for them all. For as Christ said on the cross, this is a bit arrogant, of course. Not, no, I shouldn't joke about it. There's no joke in it, you know. There is no joke in any of this. These were real events. These were historical teaching processes that we've all been going through for years. Some of us since children, so heavily pre-programmed to be good little angels. And then when we're kicked out of our own country, we're suddenly cast into losing all our merits, you know, all our brownie points for everything we did, and suddenly confronted with do what the Romans do, and whether you want to or not, they're going to be doing it anyway. So coming to Canada in 1960 with a little angel boy who of 23, who was suddenly torn away from everything he loved because he opened his mouth too wise. Too wise, yeah, too wise opening your mouth when you're too young, and you've been cultivated to be doing something else. Well, boy, oh boy, you're walking a very thin line. And like all men considering themselves even remotely saintly, you know, I fell from grace with a great big flop. And since then, I've sort of had to chew my way back in, develop a new set of wings, and try and find happiness. It ain't easy, folks. It ain't friggin' easy, but work at it, because your reward for being in heaven, in my view, is being in that part of the prison planet where you do what you can to, you know, support those poor people that have lost their way in the wilderness, and trying to get them back into the wilderness to spend some time and give some serious thought to the purpose of their life, because everyone does have a purpose. And when they've discovered that, when I, they, us, you, have all seen that one of the fundamental purposes that God gave us was to be peaceful, have to find in our hearts gratitude for everything we poor ex-sinners or poor sinners have lived with. And that pain will drop away. And if I live one more day, I will be 85. If I live one more month, I'll be free of 84. I want to see, for peace around the world, 13 moons. And one day, as the Azteca calendar. And I think all the calendars of the native people on this continent were three, uh, uh, how does it go now? 28 days, and that's three sevens are 28, aren't they? Three sixes are 18, four sixes are 4, two sevens are 14, three sevens, 21, four sevens are 28. Yeah, that's right, 28 days. So 28 days, that's 364 days. And one day they totally pretend it's not there. I love it. So there's a day, they call it Electric Wizard Day. And by some curiosity of fact, and I've lived with this fact a long time for somebody who, if I'd only lived with facts that people have either experienced personally or somebody who really knew, who claimed some authority, uh, said, yeah, that was because Constantine, who was the ruler, I think, or Charlemagne was it, one of the others anyway, one of those people decided that we had to have 12 because of the, what was it, 12 apostles or something? And that was the way it was going to be. And since he ran the show, that was what it's going to be. So I only have a question out there to how should we call that new month if we adopt it? And if you consider what this will do for getting us in tune, not only with Mother Earth and Father Sun, and think about it this way: Father Sun gets you out up in the morning and you're asleep on Mother Earth. He gets you up, he gets you going, and then by lunchtime, you've probably done what you really all had to do by that day, on that day. That was what the work was cut out for you. And after that, you should be free, unless you're a slave, in which case you've got to go on into the afternoon. But by lunchtime, that should be the end of most activities which don't need, a 24-hour service and so on. Obviously, there are exceptions to everything we can think about. But that is the purpose of men and women's circles meeting separately around the idea of the generation of enlightenment for our caretaker government. And I want to say one other things about the caretaker movement, which I still represent, and you can still look it up on Google. And I've had it up there for a very long time, as I had YouTube for quite a long time, and Facebook. I've just got back, but they've, it's not easy anymore. It's weird. It's all gone weird. It's all this stuff. Anyway, dear old Mr. Trump is going to fix it, I do believe. So anyway, cut the story very, very short. Holy Father, Holy Mother, help us to do thy holy will. Grandmother Moon, Grandfather Moon, be with us in our times. Show us through our wisdom that we can pass through this rough period where the black hats and the white hats fall. And being a white hat, of course, I'm happy to see that Shiva will take care of anything that we might care at this point not to be seen anything but intrusive and counter well-being for the common people. But Shiva will take care of that. So be aware, folks. Get on the right side, and the right side is do no harm. Holy Father, Holy Mother, Holy Grandmother, Holy Grandfather, guide us through this craziness. Guide us to a place of peace, harmony, and joy. And let us sing more. You can find some of my old songs, which I make up on the day, on the moment, on YouTube. So look for Rainbow John 1. And please, what do they say? Subscribe. I've never asked anyone to do that before because it seemed to me that's a bit pushy. But forgive my desire to get truth out. Thank you, YouTube. Thank you, all the other people that are using this incredible piece of machinery, this incredible genius of these people that set this up. Who knows to keep war going? And how ironic if we can bring peace through it. So I think we're looking forward to a Fool's meeting, April 1st in May. And on that day, I think wisdom will come in a grand scale. Thank you all for listening. And once again, thank you, YouTube, for letting me back on. Have a good day. Look for the signs. Peace. Thank you.